The Spanish series Intimacy on Netflix was not what I thought it was going to be. I was expecting a drama of sorts, but this turned out to have a much deeper message in mind. This chronicles the lives of four women who are forced to tread the fine line between what belongs to public and private life. Where are the boundaries of our intimacy? And what happens to our lives when our privacy becomes everyone's conversation? This follows a few different storylines that all converge through shared relationships or similar circumstances. A politician is filmed having sex and the footage is leaked to the world. A factory worker's old intimate images are shared around her workplace, and an ex threatens to release some videos of he and a young woman. The theme and message of this story is absolutely awesome. I mean, right from the very start, this show asks, why are people vilified when their private information or content is shared with the world? I mean, if consenting adults are engaged in a relationship, whether it be an affair, a committed couple, or a group, should their private lives be subject for debate in the public eye? And more importantly, if the content is leaked, don't they become the victims? I mean, shouldn't those that distributed the private info be the ones to be vilified and prosecuted? I mean, but that's not really how things play out in real life, are they? If you've watched La Casa de Papel, you'll notice the main player in this is Lisbon from that awesome crime show. Itziar Ituño stars as Malin, and she has an incredible performance where she has to balance her public and private lives because she's a public figure under a ton of scrutiny. She's really the question raiser in the story, giving the narrative some massive weight as she has to battle the perceptions of her when a private moment is shared with the world. In addition to the privacy issue, the show also addresses the theme of guilt, and this, along with shame, I mean, those are huge drivers for the story. We watch Malin, as I mentioned. I mean, she is ashamed at her private life becoming displayed in the public and then used in a power play to try and control her. Malin's husband also then has to deal with guilt and shame once the content is released. And I love, though, how we get to see a completely different outlook and perspective from him. While Malin is stronger and maybe angrier, he is more meek and then defeated. And the content being released casts a different view on him than it does Malin. But neither of them experience benefits from this exposure. There's the factory worker named Anne, and the show opens with her. Now, she serves as our narrator throughout the series, but it's done in a very personal way. The narration almost feels like we've become the character that's being shown on screen, and then the narration becomes our thoughts. I thought it was a great way to draw the audience into a character and feel connected, even if we don't connect with them on any other level. We also see Anne's sister Vego, and she turns in a very emotionally impactful performance. She's got this vulnerability to her, but also a rawness and rage that are visible through every interaction. I mean, her hurt is surface level, but it's also cutting so deep into her being. And she's a powerful catalyst for story movement, and she does it effectively. There's also a police investigator who's working to solve who leaked the information on these women. Now, she treats the women truly as victims, wanting to get justice for them, but she doesn't feel safe in expressing who she really is. The political and social climate around her is completely unsafe, which then leads her to stuff her true emotions, which then affects her relationships. There's also a huge theme of gaslighting that occurs for our characters. So many of the victims are led to believe that they are the bad ones, that they have done something wrong, and the public reaction is just the natural consequence. And this is just mirroring our present society. I don't think it's anything groundbreaking, but I do really like that it blatantly draws attention to the fact that just because we may find something personally reprehensible in somebody else's private life, I mean, if they're not breaking the law or harming anybody, then it's none of anybody's business. And then if somehow private content was shared, it still remains none of our business. But if we look, watch, and or comment, we become complicit with those that violated the privacy. Now, the cinematography in the show is spectacular. It's not quite cinematic, but it's very European, where the filmmakers aren't afraid to put characters just down in one corner to give the rest of the scene a ton of room. There's often a lot of symmetry also in the shots, keeping our subject right in our eye line so that we can then emotionally connect with them. This is 8 episodes with each of them 45 to 50-ish minutes. Now, there's a mystery within this that I found compelling, as the perpetrators of the leaked footage and the images, they're just completely unknown to us. The investigation isn't too in-depth, and it doesn't dominate the narrative, but the intrigue of finding out the culprit, I mean, it kept me engaged. That being said, the show does feel long. I think portions of each episode linger unnecessarily in spots where just the information and the story aren't really progressing the narrative forward in an efficient manner. And it's not the pacing that's really the issue, it's the content. The pace has a bit of an urgency to it, especially towards the final episodes where everything begins to culminate and come to a head. I appreciate how the story also normalizes and encourages taking care of mental health, especially for the victims. And while each of these stories is harrowing and very disturbing, most of them get a resolution, but one doesn't, leaving it in progress. Now, at first that kind of bugged me, but after sitting with it for a while, I appreciate the reality of that decision. Especially for the character that it involves. This is a scenario that makes sense and it feels natural, and then it comes about organically. I do wish, though, that the character would have done something specific which would have saved a bunch of heartache. Now, I know that is vague, but the behavior also falls in line with reality. How not everybody is going to do what they probably should right off the bat. So overall, Intimacy is a pointed look at how society views those that have their private lives made public. Are they vilified, shamed, and gaslit, or are they treated with care and concern as victims of harassment? The acting is wonderful, with some powerful and palpable performances. Despite the overall length feeling too long, the message contained within this shouldn't be missed. And it doesn't hurt anything that the production is beautiful to look at due to the awesome cinematography. There's a lot of sex, some nudity, a ton of profanity, and some violence. I give Intimacy 4 out of 5 couches. So what are you watching right now? Are you in the middle of anything awesome? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.